if you look at what happened in September and October of 2008, there were some extraordinary things done. The Federal Reserve poured $85 billion into AIG, and if they hadn't, our world would be very different. Hank Paulson guaranteed money market funds at a time when 30 million Americans with money market funds were panicking, and when $300 billion in 3 days had gone out of the non-government money market funds, 125 of it had gone back into the government. 300 billion, that was almost equal to the deposits of Wells Fargo or Wachovia at the time, which were then two separate institutions. Both of those authorities have essentially been I don't think they can do that under Dodd-Frank. I don't think that Bernanke could do what he did, and I don't think that Paulson can do what he did. When there's a panic, the only thing that will stop it, basically, is when somebody who has the ability and the will says, I'm going to do whatever it takes. And basically, that's what Bernanke and Paulson, and finally, Congress in a kind of a reluctant way, but said to the American public. And you could believe it. If Bernanke said, I'm going to do whatever it takes, nobody knows what Section 13(3) of the Federal Reserve Act is, and it wasn't probably meant to do what he did with it, but he did it. And the same way with they call it the Exchange Stabilization Fund of the Treasury. It was enacted back in 1934. Nobody dreamt it would be used to take care of money market funds. But you had these strong characters who had the ability to print money in the case of Bernanke, and they said, we're going to do whatever it takes, and the president was behind them. That is the way you end a real panic, and I worry actually that Congress doesn't like to give anybody that much authority, and it bothers them that the Fed has all this authority, or that Paulson acted as he did in TARP, and I tip my hat to them, and I'm not sure. There will be another panic. Where it comes from, who knows? But when that time comes, the question will be, are the people who have panicked, who have frozen, who have caused the economic engine to stop, will they believe and come right back and be doing something? And I'm not sure whether what's been enacted is a plus or a minus in that regard. Regardless, the country will come through. But it's very hard to write regulations that will keep people from acting foolishly, particularly when acting foolishly has been proven very profitable over the preceding few years. It's just the way it works. Humans, they all think they're Cinderella at the ball, and they think, as the night goes along, the music gets better and the drinks flow and everything, and they all think they're going to leave at 2 minutes to 12. And of course, there's no clocks on the wall, and they're still dancing. So it'll happen again. The lessons are that people will continue to make the same mistakes they've made. I mean, humans, and it doesn't correlate to IQ particularly. I mean, when they get greedy, and we had this huge bubble in the most important asset the American public has, housing. I mean, so you had a huge bubble in something that you could borrow heavily against. So you could run a margin account effect on a house instead of stocks, and the conditions got very lax. And so when that bubble popped, but people came into that gradually. When they get fearful, it happens all at once. I mean, when people get scared, they all want to leave at one time. And we had them all want to leave at one time, and that'll happen again. It'll happen with a different set of circumstances, but the human animal will keep behaving pretty much the way it has in the past. So we will have periodic recessions. We'll have an occasional panic, which doesn't all recessions don't come from panics. But the good news is, if you look at the 20th century, in the 20th century, we had 2 world wars. We had the Great Depression. We had the flu epidemic. We had the Cold War. We had the atom bomb, you name it. The Dow Jones average went from 66 to 11,497. With all these terrible things happening supposedly at various times. America works. And when I bought my first stock when I was 11, that was in the spring of 1942. And that was a couple months after Pearl Harbor. And we were getting clobbered in the Pacific at Corregidor and Bataan. I mean, the Death March of Bataan. And in the European theater, the Blitz of England was on. And the Dow was at about 100. But just look at where we are now. I mean, the country really works. Since I was born in 1930, real GDP per capita has increased 6 for 1. Just think of that, 6 for 1. I mean, you went centuries when nothing happened right. for people. And this country works. I mean, I consider the luckiest person on a probabilistic basis that ever lived is the baby that's born today in the United States. I mean, it is a fabulous country, and the market system works all kinds of things. But we do have to, in my view, we have to make sure that everybody participates to a reasonable degree. We don't want equality of results, but we also want a base level that's satisfactory.